There's no denying that it's a big day in Pakistan. The former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is coming home with a call to defend the country against forces that are out to discredit his campaign and disrupt free elections. He and his daughter Maryam face imminent arrest on arrival in Lahore. Some are calling it the Sharif's desperate final bid to galvanize his party, the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, which is facing a contest from the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party of Imran Khan. Can the wily Sharif survive this latest crisis, or will Imran Khan, the Pathan from Miawali, have the last laugh? That is going to be the focus on WION. We are tracking all the developments coming out of Pakistan and incisive analysis, of course, with our eminent panel of guests. We'll be going across to them in a short bit. But before we do that, I just want to give our viewers an opportunity to listen in once again to Nawaz Sharif's reaction before he boarded the flight to Lahore.
पाकिस्तान का 30, 35, 40% मीडिया भी इकट्ठा होकर स्टैंड ले ले, किसी की जरूरत नहीं है कि वो फिर मीडिया गैगिंग कर सके या मीडिया को ब्लैकमेल कर सके या फिर मीडिया के खिलाफ कोई इकदाम कर सके, लेकिन मीडिया को भी स्टैंड लेना पड़ेगा। मैं तो इन टच लोगों के साथ, मुझे अगर नहीं रहने दिया जाता तो मैं तो अपना काम कर रहा हूँ। मैं तो स्ट्रगल को उसके आखिरी हद तक लेके जा रहा हूँ और मैंने तो अपना इकदाम उठा लिए अपने जो उठाने थे मैंने, और मैंने अपना जो कहा था वोट को इज्जत दो, उसके लिए मैं देखें वोट को इज्जत दो के लिए मैं खुद यहाँ पर पाकिस्तान पहुँच रहा हूँ और अपने एक बीमारी आएगी इलेक्शनों की, और जो कुछ हो चुका है अभी तक क्या साख रह गई है। तो अगर क्रेडिबिलिटी नहीं इलेक्शंस की तो फिर कौन मानेगा उन इलेक्शंस के रिजल्ट को।
Joining me on the broadcast right now is Sultan Halli, Defence and Strategic Affairs expert. He's joining us from Islamabad. Mr. Halli, thank you for making time with us here on WION. There's been a media lockdown. There's no phone or internet services in Lahore. Supporters of the PMLN have been arrested. Is this turning out to be what seems to be a huge threat for Pakistan's establishment? At least it appears so, because why go so far out to make sure that there is absolutely no access for media channels and for his supporters to catch a glimpse of the leader once he comes back to his home turf?
Well, to start with, Nawaz Sharif is a convict, and the government, the caretaker government of Pakistan, is not taking any chances for a law and order situation to be created if his supporters try and break the barriers in trying to reach the aircraft or to greet him and create mayhem. So that is why perhaps they have overreacted. But it was expected, because they are not experts on the job. They are only caretakers, and they do not want any situation to develop which will challenge their authority. And that is why a serious lockdown has taken place, which includes shutting down of the social media and the cell phone networks. However, Nawaz Sharif knows very well that he has been convicted by a court on charges which were actually brought into focus by international forces like the Panama scandal, and therefore his claim that he is going to get the sympathy of Pakistan, claiming that he has been wronged, probably may not cut ice, and he may be left in the lurch like he was in 2001 when he cut a deal with the then army dictator and beat a hasty retreat to Saudi Arabia.
All right, we'll talk a little bit more about the other elements to all of this story, including the legal options in front of Nawaz Sharif and Maryam Nawaz. On the broadcast with me also right now is Tilak Devashar. He is the former Special Secretary and Cabinet Secretary at Government of India from New Delhi. Good evening, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us on the broadcast as well. If I could ask you, in terms of optics, this is great for Pakistan's Muslim League Nawaz's supremo. He still is that. I mean, he's been, that tag's been snatched from him. But the way it's appearing, it seems like this is a victorious man returning to an adoring republic, which is being prevented from meeting him at the Lahore airport. Would you say that visually this is perhaps what the PMLN might have been hoping for, and it's been handed to them in some ways on a platter?
Well, certainly for the PMLN, this is a huge moment that Nawaz Sharif is returning to Pakistan to face arrest and to face the consequences of his conviction. For the PMLN, it is a great moment visually, as you mentioned. However, is it actually so? The fact of the matter is that he's been convicted on corruption charges. In the judicial process, there can be an appeal and further appeal to the Supreme Court. We'll have to wait and see what happens to the case. But for the PMLN, for the moment, it was very important that Nawaz Sharif returned to take charge of the campaign. Even if he's in jail, it will enthuse PMLN workers. Unfortunately, Shehbaz Sharif has not been able to provide the kind of leadership and the kind of enthusiasm to the voters and to the party cadres that Nawaz Sharif does have. So yes, for the PMLN, it's a huge moment.
Is it safe to say also, just going back off of what you just said, that Shehbaz Sharif himself, his role in all of this, we've heard rumors of the fact that Nawaz Sharif was not happy with the statement he made after the Avonfield court case's verdict, that he's always appeared to be far less hawkish on the establishment than Nawaz Sharif has, and that he has a cozy relationship with the army, which might not be out in the open, but that he is keeping his options open, given that two of the contenders in the PMLN, that is Nawaz Sharif and Maryam Nawaz, are facing long sentences behind bars.
Yes, there is definitely a rift between Nawaz Sharif and Shehbaz Sharif in the narrative, for example. Now, Nawaz Sharif, for the last 1 year since he was removed as Prime Minister in July 2017, has adopted a very confrontational stand with the establishment, with the judiciary, with the army, and especially more so now. Shehbaz Sharif, on the other hand, has adopted a very conciliatory approach. In fact, just recently he made two important statements. One, he did not want confrontation with institutions. And secondly, he was willing to form a national government after the elections were over. Again, a signal to the establishment that he is willing to compromise with them. Now, these two narratives are totally diametrically opposed. So I'm sure Shehbaz Sharif, somewhere deep down, is not very comfortable with the return of Nawaz Sharif because it will bring this rift out into the open. And a lot of other PMLN legislators who are contesting elections also would not like to adopt a confrontational path with the establishment for the sake of their own electoral victories and their future. Nawaz Sharif has nothing to lose. So he is totally out confronting the government, trying to show ki vote ki izzat do, that he will set right the civil-military relations and put the military in, in its place. But does that suit Shehbaz? I don't think so. There is a rift, there is a major difference of opinion, and there is also the issue of legacy. Shehbaz would like his own son, Hamza Sharif, to step into his shoes, whereas Nawaz is looking to position his daughter, Maryam, into his shoes. So there is that personal rivalry also.
Okay, sibling rivalry at that. Let me ask Sultan Halli on that note. Is a lot of this going to also depend on the legal options in front of the Sharifs at this point in time? And I ask you this because, there has been speculation that there are aspects of the Avonfield court verdict that suggest that the Sharifs can use certain points of that verdict to their advantage, that there is a lot of dependence on circumstantial evidence and not anything that can directly tie the properties and the ownership of those properties to ill-gotten wealth. Is this true?
Well, you see, to start with, Nawaz Sharif was given multiple chances to provide a money trail to how the Avonfield properties were acquired. And unfortunately, he failed to do so. Now, you see, the legal options are very much open to him. And for that, he had to return to Pakistan because without his personal return and presenting himself for arrest, he could not present his case for bail. firstly, and secondly, for a review of his trial. So for these, he had to come back. But these options are open, and he is definitely going to follow through them. Now, whether there is circumstantial evidence or not, I cannot comment on that because I do not have a judicial background. But I can say this, having followed the case, that there is much more to Evenfield than what has been even brought out. And there are a number of other cases also lying pent up against him, which may be put forward by the National Accountability Bureau, which may put him into deeper trouble. So this is something to be watched out for.
Okay, so it could be a calculated risk on either side. I'll request both of you to stay on with me a while longer. Just want to turn our attention to the fact that the 3 times ousted Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif seems to have nothing to lose at all. That's perhaps the most charitable explanation of his decision to come home and face the music in prison. He wants to show that he is not afraid of the military, that although sentenced to 10 years in prison, his fight against the men in khaki who have ruled Pakistan for 34 of its 70 years as an independent nation will go on. But shrewd politician that he is, Nawaz is milking his homecoming for all it's worth, hoping to cash in on the sympathy vote out there. The release of a photo, for instance, of him saying farewell to his wife Kulsum, who is on a ventilator in London, was carefully calculated, and South Asian electorates have time and again been swayed by images like these, usually of a family member or the loss of a family member. Kulsum Nawaz has been ill for quite some time now, and the news of her condition and treatment has been widely reported in Pakistan. So the sympathy factor definitely is already there. In the event that her condition deteriorates closer to polling day, one can count on Nawaz Sharif's party to spread the word. Every vote counts, and in times such as this, Nawaz needs to demonstrate the breadth of his support in Pakistan and more so in his home province, Punjab.
और इंशाल्लाह 25 जुलाई का जब सूरज शुरू होगा और इंशाल्लाह शाम को जब रिजल्ट्स आएंगे तो वो रिजल्ट्स अल्लाह ने चाहा तो वो रिजल्ट्स साबित करेंगे कि मियां नवाज शरीफ की जो लीडरशिप है उसने पाकिस्तान को बेपनाह बेलौस खिदमत की है.
Now, if his party does well in Punjab, it means reprieve from the pressure it's currently under from the army. He can stem the defections of his cadre to Imran Khan's party and turn the pressure on the army. It may even help him to get out of prison. If he gets out, one can expect Nawaz to go hammer and tongs after the army. But it's clear there's no longer any love lost between the two. He needs to stem the challenge from Imran Khan, whose call for probity in public life is resonating with a section of the public.
Public is demanding accountability of corrupt leaders of political parties. Now, each time there is an attempt to hold them accountable, they all get together and start saying it's anti-democratic. And in this case, they are saying it's people rigging.
This is also about preserving Nawaz Sharif's legacy for the next generation of the family to take over. It's presumed to be his daughter Maryam, but the legacy he bequeaths her must be credible. He looks like he has a war on his hands. Right, let's go back to our guests. Tilak Devashar, this one is for you. There's no doubt about the fact that Nawaz Sharif and the PMLN continue to be a force to reckon with in Punjab. And that sympathy factor, without sounding callous about it, the fact that his wife is unwell, we've seen images that are very touching of the family saying goodbye to one another as Nawaz Sharif and Maryam Nawaz make their way over to Pakistan. These are images that do connect with South Asian, populace where family connections are very strong. Do you think that that is also something that we need to keep note of as we watch the developments in Lahore?
Certainly, I think sympathy will play a factor when he comes back and he and his daughter are sort of arrested and taken to jail. His wife being unwell in a London hospital, as you mentioned, saying goodbye. These are very important, optics, and will certainly sway and play on the voters' mind. But they will play more on the voters' mind who are already PMLN voters, sort of strengthen their support for the PMLN. How will they play out for other voters, who are PTI voters or who are fence-sitters? I really don't know, and I can't say at this moment. We'll have to wait and watch to see how, for the next 15 days or next 12 days for the elections, how this actually sympathy wave catches on? Will Nawaz and the PMLN be able to cash in on this? You see, to cash in on any elections, you have to organize the party, you have to organize the voters, you have to organize cadres, you have to have big public meetings, with all the tamasha like in Pakistani politics. Is the PMLN today in a position to do so, or has it been so badly demoralized that it will not be able to do so? So while yes, sympathy does play an important part, will play an important part, how will it be cashed upon by the PMLN will remains to be seen.
Okay, Sultan Ali, I want to ask you, is the divide between the vote base, the traditional vote base for the PMLN and the PTI extremely, let's say, well defined? Mr. Sharif has always stood for, at least purported to stand for, principles of a civil democracy and to stand up to the military establishment. When we look at Imran Khan, for instance, he's considered someone who backs the military, but is also someone who's backing probity in public life. Are those two divides, is the divide between the two of them, very wide and difficult to bridge for the voter who's trying to make up their mind as to who he or she wants to vote for?
Well, you see, Nawaz Sharif does command a kind of an allegiance of a group of or a coterie of supporters who are going to vote for him irrespective. They are not bothered that he is a convict and he was convicted for corruption and so on. They're definitely going to vote for him. But then there is a group which is of a saner element. You see, democracy in Pakistan may be in its nascent stages, but it has happened in the last three elections. I mean, this is the third one coming up now, that the voters have become a little more aware of their rights. And in that, they are questioning. I have seen videos of a number of candidates going to the people and asking them to vote for them, irrespective whether they were PMLN or PPP or PTI. They have asked back that, you see, you had made us promises in the previous elections and you have not delivered. So how dare you come and ask for us? You have to make yourself accountable. Secondly, you see, the politicians in Pakistan, unfortunately, some of them are again not all that devoted to the party. They sit on the fence. Even now, nearly 140 breakaway candidates have filed in as independent candidates. They're going to sit on the fence and they're going to wait and see whether the PTI weighs the balance is in favor of PTI or in favor of PMLN, and they will cast their lot with whoever appears to be winning. So keeping these in mind, coming back to your question, the divide between them, yes, there is a very serious divide, but there are people who are, gaining maturity, and they will rather vote for their own rights instead of, going for individuals or personalities.
Okay, but I want to ask you, there is, of course, the fact that a huge chunk of the Pakistani vote today comes from the youth. Is the youth exhausted, Mr. Hali, with the fact that it has to choose between someone who stands up to the military dictatorship and someone who appears to be against corruption? Is there nobody in Pakistan today that sort of personifies both those wishes and demands for the average young Pakistani who has access to social media, who sees how things are developing in other countries? In India, for instance, there is no doubt about the fact that India is considered a robust democracy, whereas Pakistan is yet to see a government that's been voted in see a full term through. Is it exhausting for the Pakistani voter today?
Well, you see, there is a paucity of real leaders in Pakistan, and probably 2 or 3 more elections we'll have to wait for sound leadership to be churned out. But coming back to your question about the youth in Pakistan still remains committed to Imran Khan, and they are going to cast their lot with Imran Khan because they identify in him. And many of the members of the youth who were, underage in the previous elections now have suddenly found themselves eligible for voting, and they have vowed to vote for Imran Khan. So the youth will weigh in, and that will be in favor of Imran Khan.